Her name.
Vilasika?
Is it? Mukta, yeah, Mukta. Okay, yeah. So Shobha Radhe Mataji was
She was talking with her.
okay, so they connected. Okay, I just want to make sure the class began, that they connected. Great. Hare Krishna.
Was there someone, maybe the drum, unless there's another drum.
Yeah, the drum.
Maybe the drum, yeah. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari 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 Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandan Rajajanarantana Yashodanandan Rajajanarantana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Prabhupada ki Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Astotar Saraswati Shimali Zavanga Srila Bhakti Saranta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada ki Srila Bhakti Saranta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Shri Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki Shri Shri Hare Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana ki Shri Vrindavan Mathura Rama ki Shri Navadi Mayapur Rama ki Shri Jagannath Puri Rama ki Tulasi Devi ki Bhakti Devi ki Ganga Mai ki Jamuna Mai ki Harinam Sankirtana Mahajagya ki Samveda Bhaktavinda ki Hitai Gaur Sitanath Premanandi. All glories to the Samadhavati. All glories to the Samadhavati. All glories to the Samadhavati. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Guru. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 What number is this?
26. 226.
Thank you. Reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, Chapter 2, the contents of the Gita summaries, text 26. Ata chainam nitya jatam
Atha chainam nitya jatam
nityam va manyase mritam
nityam va manyase mritam
tathapi tam mahabaho
tathapi tam mahabaho
nainam shochitum arhasi.
nainam sochitum arhasi.
Atha chainam nitya jatam
Atha chainam nitya jatam
nityam va manyase mritam
nityam va manyase mritam
tathapi tam mahabaho
tathapi tvam mahabaho
nainam shochitum arhasi.
nainam sochitum arhasi.
Atha chainam nitya jatam
Atha chainam nitya jatam
nityam va manyase mritam
nityam va manyase mritam
tathapi tam mahabaho
tathapi tvam mahabaho
nainam shochitum arhasi.
nainam sochitum arhasi.
Atha chainam nityajatam
Atha chainam nitya jatam
nityam vamanate mritam
nityam va manyase mritam
tathapi tvam mahavaho
tathapi tvam mahabaho
nainam sochitam arhasi.
Atha chainam nityam jatam nityam va manyase mritam tathapi tvam mahabaho nainam sochitum arhasi. Nityam jatam nityam va manyase mritam tathapi tvam mahabaho nainam sochitum arhasi.
Mataji's, Vaishnavis.
Atha chainam nityam jatam tathapi tvam mahabaho nainam sochitum arhasi. Atha chainam nitya jatam nityam va manyase mritam tathapi tvam mahabaho nainam sochitum arhasi.
Translation. If, however, you think that the soul or the symptoms of life will always be born and die forever, You still have no reason to lament, O mighty armed. Translation with repetition. If, however, you think, please repeat, that the soul or the symptoms of life
the symptom of life,
will always be born and die forever,
always be born and die forever,
you still have no reason to lament,
there still no need to lament,
O mighty armed.
O mighty God.
Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. There is always a class of philosophers, almost akin to the Buddhists, who do not believe in the separate existence of the soul beyond the body. When Lord Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita, it appears that such philosophers existed, and they were known as the Lokayitakas and the Vaibhashikas. Such philosophers maintain that life symptoms take place at a certain mature condition of material combination. The modern material scientists and materialist philosophers also think similarly. According to them, the body is a combination of physical elements, and at a certain stage, the life symptoms develop by interaction of the physical and chemical elements. The science of anthropology is based on this philosophy. Currently, many pseudo-religions, now becoming fashionable in America, are also adhering to this philosophy, as are the nihilistic, non-devotional Buddhist sects. Even if Arjuna did not believe in the existence of the soul, as in the Vaibhashika philosophy, there would still have been no cause for lamentation. No one laments the loss of a certain bulk of chemicals and stops discharging his prescribed duty. On the other hand, in modern science and scientific warfare, so many tons of chemicals are wasted for achieving victory over the enemy. According to the Vaibhashika philosophy, the so-called soul or Atma vanishes along with the deterioration of the body. So in any case, whether Arjuna accepted the Vedic conclusion that there is an atomic soul or he did not believe in the existence of the soul, he had no reason to lament. According to this theory, since there are so many living entities generating out of matter every moment, and so many of them are being vanquished every moment, there is no need to grieve for such incidents. If there were no rebirth for the soul, Arjuna had no reason to be afraid of being affected by sinful reactions due to his killing his grandfather and teacher. But at the same time, Krishna sarcastically addressed Arjuna as Mahabahu, mighty armed, which, because he, at least, did not accept the theory of the Vaibhashikas, which leaves aside the Vedic wisdom. As a Kshatriya, Arjuna belonged to the Vedic culture, and it behooved him to continue to follow its principles. Atachainam nityajatam nityam vamanyase mritam tatapi tvam mahabaho nainam shochitam arhasi. If, however, you think the soul or the symptoms of life will always be born and die forever, and you still have no reason to lament, O mighty arm. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanam Jana Shalakaya Chakshuru Naritam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Paraya Krishna Vastaya Bhutale Srimati Jaya Pataka Swamini Tinamine. Nama Acharya Parayane Taikripa Parayane Gorkha Dharanai Nagaragamatayane. Nama Om Vishnu Paraya Krishna Vastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Vacharine Yavishesha Shunyavadi Pastajirishtatayane. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gauravarta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachalam bhangam nangaite girim yakipatamaham bhande Shri Gurum Dinitharanam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. So here, of course, most of the second chapter is about the soul. And here Krishna is telling Arjuna that even if you think the soul will always be born and die forever, you still have no reason to lament. Prabhupada is elaborating on this, saying how the materialistic philosophers, the scientists, he mentions the modern materialist scientists, this is their philosophy that, of course, Prabhupada, he would say life comes from life. There's even that one book, Life Comes from Life. And Prabhupada, he would call out the modern scientists. He would say they're always saying in the future, we will create life from, like they call it test tube baby or like this, right? They're always saying we will create life because they want, anyway. So Prabhupada would say, what is this in the future? This is post-dated check. You cannot say, he said they're simply cheating. You cannot create, but they're bluffing, they're cheating the people. And the people, because there's been so many scientific achievements that people can practically see, right, in the modern world. And the people, they believe. But Prabhupada said they're bluffing, they're cheating. He said they're rascals, actually. And he said that was one of the main parts of his mission, was to defeat because they're saying, like, sometimes Darwin is described as the man who killed God. Of course, you cannot kill God. But in terms of people's belief, the Christian world dominated the world before, at least in the Europe and in the European civilization, at least. The Christianity was dominant. And like, if you were an atheist, you were like an outcast. Now it's practically the other way around, unfortunately. But at that time, and then at the time of Darwin, and when he wrote this book, what was it called? Origin of Species, right? It was the calculated effort of the demons. There's no proof. It's a scam. Evolution, there's no proof. But it's a calculated effort this is the Kali Yuga. The demons are always calculating how to decrease people's faith in God. And it worked. It worked like anything. Very successful. The demons are very intelligent. Very intelligent. So they're trying to introduce this idea, like Krishna is telling Arjuna here, that even if you think that the soul will always be born and die forever, and how Prabhupada is mentioning in the purport, how the modern materialistic scientists, they have this idea that there's no soul. We're just a bunch of chemicals. And then Krishna is saying, you still have no reason to lament. Prabhupada is elaborating on that. That still there would be no reason to lament. That who laments just a bunch of chemicals? But then at the end, then Prabhupada is mentioning in the purport that Arjuna belonged to the Vedic culture and that it behooved him to continue to follow its principles. And that Krishna is sarcastically addressing Arjuna at the end as Mahabahu, mighty arm. In other words, that he belongs to the Vedic culture and he should accept it. So that may be the prominent philosophy nowadays in the material world, that there's no soul. There's no God, there's no soul. Of course, there are many people actually who do believe in God. But still, it's quite prominent in the materialistic civilization today. But we, just as Krishna is sarcastically addressing Arjuna, you're sort of calling out, we should not subscribe to that. We should not subscribe to that. So in order to get the real idea, we need transcendental knowledge. We need the scriptures. We need a bona fide spiritual teacher. This is the reason why Prabhupada has come, right, to the West and all over the world, and why he wrote so many books, to give people this transcendental knowledge. He said that in the modern universities, he said there's no class in the universities that tells what is the difference between a dead body and a living body. There's no class. But this is the most important part of knowledge, he said. Everyone's going to die. Everyone in their college, they're preparing for their exam. Because why? Because they don't want to end up on the street. They want to get a job, and right? They want to maintain their material existence. It's required. But then the real exam is what? At the time of death. So if the universities are not preparing people for the real exam, then they're cheating. They're cheating. Because the time of death, and people are going to be in for a big surprise. Like for many people, unfortunately, in the Kali Yuga, the Yamadutas will come, right? And it won't be very pleasant. And we try to warn them. That is our duty. We try to warn them. But how many people are interested to listen to the message of Mahaprabhu, the message of Krishna? Very few. Anyway, this is our duty to somehow or other try to save people from having this unfortunate experience where at the time of death they're very surprised, and then they realizing that they have failed the actual exam that the university systems did not prepare them for. So this is the real university, started by Srila Prabhupada, this ISKCON society, with the real knowledge to prepare people for the real exam. So we want to become students in this university, and then we want to help others as much as we are able to do so. That is our duty to do as well. So I want to switch over, because today is the disappearance day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. So I wanted to switch over to read a little bit. Of course, those who were here earlier, It's maybe a little bit of repeat, but anyway, we'll read something about his life first and then speak something. So, about Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. During the time, so of course Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's father was who? Bhaktivinoda Thakur, of course. So during the time of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's stay on this planet, the pure religion of Vaishnavism taught by the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was essentially lost and had become very, very degraded. It had become a cult of religious fanaticism, sentimentalism. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was very sad in his heart to see this, and with the desire to present the actual teachings of Sri Chaitanya, he wrote and published many books in Bengali, Sanskrit, and English, which conclusively presented to the world and to the people of India specifically the real teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his genuine followers. He also traveled to many parts of India preaching and giving lectures to many people whose hearts became changed by seeing his pure character and shining example. Thakur Bhaktivinoda practically single-handedly revived the pure movement of Nam Sankirtan, the congregational chanting of the holy names of the Lord, and presented the glories of Lord Chaitanya to all learned men of the world. However, so that this preaching of Nam Sankirtan could go on nicely even after Bhaktivinoda Thakur left this world, he prayed to Lord Chaitanya to send him an assistant and a successor from the Lord's personal staff of preachers. Answering the prayer of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, a son was born to him on February 6, 1874, while Bhaktivinoda Thakur was serving as the government magistrate in the holy city of Jagannath Puri in Orissa. Through various signs, the Lord showed Bhaktivinoda Thakur and his good wife that this was the great soul that had been sent by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to carry on the preaching work that Bhaktivinoda Thakur had started. It was witnessed by all present that when the child came out of the womb, his umbilical cord was wrapped around him like the sacred thread worn by Brahmanas. Everyone was very amazed by this sign. 6 months later, at the annual Jagannath Puri Rath Yatra festival, the Jagannath cart, being pulled by hundreds of people, came to a stop in front of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's house. When all the people were trying to get the cart moving again, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's wife took the opportunity to take the child, whose name then was Bimala Prasad, out to see Lord Jagannath. And because she was the wife of Thakur Bhaktivinoda, who was the manager of the Jagannath temple then, everyone respected her, and she was allowed on the cart for darshan of the Lord. She then placed the child at the lotus feet of the Jagannath deity, and immediately one of the huge flower garlands hanging from the neck of the Lord fell down and encircled the child. Thakur Bhaktivinoda's heart was filled with joy, for he knew beyond all doubt that this child was the answer to his prayers. As the boy grew, the Thakur instructed him in the science of Krishna consciousness. At the age of only 7, Bimala Prasad Datta, who was later to be known as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, had memorized all 700 verses of the Bhagavad Gita and could explain each one. One day the boy took an unoffered mango from the room of the family deity and ate it. Bhaktivinoda Thakur chastised him for it upon catching him and told him that it was not proper Vaishnava behavior to eat food that had not first been offered to the Lord. At that time, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, taking his father's words very seriously, made a vow to Bhaktivinoda Thakur that he would never eat mango again. Through his whole life, he kept this vow very faithfully. Whenever someone would offer him a mango, he would say, "No, I cannot take. I am a great offender." At the age of 10, while attending the Sarampur missionary school, he was initiated by his father into the Hare Krishna mantra and a Nrsingadev mantra. In school, he invented a novel kind of phonetic alphabet, which he called Bikranti or Bikanto. Later on, he attended a special Sanskrit college where he became expert in Sanskrit grammar, Vedic Shastra, and different views of philosophy. Due to his lifelong celibacy, he had such a clear memory that even in his last days, he could reproduce word for word any passage of any book he had read 50 years back. At college, he read all of the books in the library and made private studies into higher mathematics, international history, and philosophy, and Vedic astronomy. At that time, he attended a cultural association in Calcutta called August Assembly, and in which the study of various philosophical and theological topics was conducted. He was such a powerful debater that no one's arguments could stand up against his vast erudition and scholarship. At the age of 23, in the year 1897, he opened a school in Calcutta, which he called Saraswat Chatushpati. It was here that he began teaching Vedic astronomy. Many prominent and scholarly Calcutta gentlemen were among his students. At this time, he also edited 2 monthly journals and published several authoritative documents on Vedic astronomy, one which he wrote himself. He was offered a chair at the University of Calcutta, but he declined, thinking that it might be too much an impediment on his devotional life. Since 1895, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was attending the meetings of his father's Vishva Vaishnava Raj Sabha in Calcutta. In 1899, he was editing and writing for a weekly cultural magazine, the Nivedana. In 1900, he wrote and published a book on the society and different religious sects in Bengal. In 1901, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur requested his son to become initiated in the Gayatri Mantra and accept a spiritual master. Bhaktivinoda Thakur had one very beloved disciple, Srila Gaura Das Babaji Maharaj, a very renowned Vaishnava saint of Navadvip. It was therefore Gaura Das Babaji Maharaj who Bhaktivinoda Thakur requested his son to take initiation from. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur then approached Babaji Maharaj for getting initiation, but Gaura Das Babaji, who didn't have any disciples, refused to accept the erudite Pandit, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, disappointed, went back to his father and related to him what had happened. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur sent him out again. And again Srila Bhaktisiddhanta came back with the same news. So this time Bhaktivinoda Thakur told his son, unless you take initiation from Gaura Das Babaji, your life is useless and you no longer may enter this house. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati then set off with great determination, and meeting Srila Gaura Das Babaji Maharaj on a bridge along the road, he told him that he would jump off the bridge and kill himself if the Babaji did not accept him as a disciple. He said to him, my father has told me that human life is worthless without a spiritual master, so if you refuse to accept me as your disciple, I must kill myself. Upon hearing and seeing the young man's sincerity of purpose, the Babaji accepted him as his only disciple. From that year, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta traveled with Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his pilgrimages to all the principal holy places in India. During this time, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta compiled a Vaishnava encyclopedia named Vaishnava Manjusha. In 1900, he was staying in Puri, where he began to publicly preach the holy precepts of Srimad Bhagavatam. In 1904, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur traveled to East Bengal, now Bangladesh. In 1905, he traveled to the far southern provinces of India, lecturing, preaching, writing, debating, fully absorbed in the fire of propagating the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In the south, he traveled to places such as Simachalam, Madras, which is now Chennai, Tirupati, Kanchipura, and many other places of pilgrimage. His strong preaching gave him such a reputation that his very name would strike terror into the hearts of his philosophical adversaries. The perverted and immoral so-called religious activities of different nonsense cults and sects were doomed forever in the presence of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. In 1911, at an all-India conference of Pandits at Midnapur, presided over by one Pandit, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, taking the place of Thakur Bhaktivinoda, who was ill at the time, lectured to an astounded audience on the comparative position of a Brahmana and a Vaishnava. After the discourse, all the people came forward to offer him respect and touch his lotus feet. The president of the conference called him the other self of Sri Sukadeva Goswami. The lecture was subsequently published as a book in Bengali. In 1912, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta traveled and preached in different parts of Bengal. In 1913, he established the Bhagavat Press in South Calcutta, which was later moved to Mayapur and then to Krishnanagar, where he began to publish his many carefully edited books. Altogether, he published, edited, and wrote about 61 works, as well as 8 different journals. Once when he was asked how it was possible to publish a journal every month just about God, He replied that here in this world there are thousands of newspapers and magazines reporting the stale, repetitious happenings of this limited space. So for reporting the news of the unlimited spiritual realm concerning the eternal, ever-fresh Supreme Personality of Godhead, we could publish a magazine at every second, what to speak of monthly. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada made special studies of the Vaishnava literature of South India and was the first to introduce Bengali translations of the works of the Madhvacharya Sampradaya to the public in Bengal. In his teachings, he has dealt with the relative positions of different Vaishnava and non-Vaishnava schools of philosophy, and he has brought out the difference between empiric and revealed methods of spiritual understanding. He always stressed the importance of publishing and distributing Vaishnava literature as a means of educating the mass of ignorant humanity, and in order to facilitate the printing of books and journals, he established 4 printing presses in Calcutta, in Mayapur, in Kushinagar, and in Cuttack, Orissa. He called these presses the big mridanga, Brihat Mridanga, because they sounded, the sound that they would produce would be heard all over India. In 1914, on the disappearance of Bhaktivinoda Thakur from this mortal world, the task to carry on the movement of Sri Chaitanya now lay in the hands of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada. He took over as the editor of his father's journal, the Sajjana Toshini, a monthly Vaishnava paper in Bengali. Later on, in 1927, he converted it into an English fortnightly called The Harmonist. In 1918, at the age of 44, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati accepted the title Goswami Maharaj by taking the renounced order of life, sannyas. On that same day, he established his first Vaishnava monastery, the Chaitanya Math, at Sridham Mayapur, which became his preaching headquarters. Later that year, one important figure in a popular religious organization met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and was so impressed by the power of purity, that he immediately begged to become his disciple. He would arrange for Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's transportation between Mayapur and Calcutta, and he rented him a small house for him in Calcutta for expanding the preaching of Sri Chaitanya's teachings. The house became known as Bhaktivinod Angana and was later known as Sri Gaudiya Math when it was later moved to a large marble building in the Bug Bazaar of North Calcutta in 1930. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur then, in quick succession after that, spread his Gaudiya mission to every part of India, attracting thousands of disciples to the banners of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. At the time of his passing from this world, he had opened 64 Gaudiya Maths for the propagation of spiritual life and Bhagavad philosophy. In all these months, he established the worship of the Archa Vigraha, the deity form of the Lord, so that his disciples would not become impersonalists. This deity worship was executed according to the principles of Sanatana Goswami's Book of Vaishnava Activities, Sri Hari Bhakti Vilas. One time a very important gentleman approached Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada and said that your Gaudiya Math is so nice that you should open up temples in all the cities of the world. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta replied, my real business is to establish temples in everyone's heart. He was such a powerful and bold preacher that he became known as the Lion Guru. Sometimes on walks in the early morning, he would come across some big Mayavadi sannyasi, and he would physically grab him and shake him while verbally chastising him. Thereafter, whenever any Mayavadis saw Srila Bhaktisiddhanta coming, they would flee in fear of him. One time, a big impersonalist Vedanta society in Calcutta, anyway, I'll skip that one. From the years 1919 to 1929, he was constantly traveling all over India, lecturing to crowds of thousands, debating, destroying various bogus religious sects, and performing parikram, walks to the holy places, with his disciples to different sacred sites, seeking to improve and preserve them. During these travels, he installed footprints of Lord Chaitanya in 108 places where the Lord had traveled during his sannyas life. At those spots, he also recorded the date when Sri Chaitanya had been there. In 1990, he completed his preaching tour over North and East Bengal, and in 1920, he toured more extensively in East Bengal. In 1920, he also toured the provinces of Bihar, Orissa, and the Santal Parganas, establishing temples in some of those places, and in 1922 he visited Vrindavan, the place of Lord Krishna's pastimes. On this Braj Mandal Parikram, he went with hundreds of disciples and gave lectures at all the major temples and places of the Lord's pastimes. In the year 1925, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, along with a large group of disciples, went on an extensive tour of Bengal. On this Gauda Mandal Parikram, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta visited all the holy places connected with the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya. In the early part of 1926, he toured in some places in Assam. His tours during the years 1926 to 1928 marked a very important place in the Gaudiya movement of Sri Chaitanya and in the history of India as well. He brought about changes and improvements in various ways in all the sacred places, as well as brought about a new spiritual insight in the minds and lives of many followers of different religious sects, and brought them all under the banners of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan movement. Wherever Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would go, he was received as a savior, a religious reviver, and a prophet by all who came in contact with him. In most states, he was received as an honored state guest, and in many places was presented with public addresses of reception. From 1928 to 1929, he again traveled to places from Assam to Punjab. During these tours, he gathered a large number of authentic manuscripts of ancient Vaishnava writings, which he started publishing, but left unfinished. All these tours were highly successful, but were not without their problems. Because many of Srila Saraswati Thakur's disciples, although initiated as Brahmanas and sannyasis, were not born in Brahmana families, along the way while traveling, the so-called Brahmana shopkeepers would close their shops and refuse to sell provisions to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and his disciples. Srila Saraswati Thakur would always preach very strongly against the nonsense philosophy of these proud and arrogant caste Brahmanas. He always emphasized the needlessness of material qualifications to receive spiritual life. Anyone, regardless of caste, sex, nationality, past background, etc., who was sincere to have spiritual life, he would give it to them. These caste Brahmanas were very much in an uproar about his turning those not born in Brahmana families into Brahmanas better than them. The Nityananda Vamsas especially plotted to assassinate him, and they went to the local police magistrate to bribe him so he wouldn't apprehend them after the murder. The police magistrate told them that although he usually accepts bribes, he could not be connected with the killing of a sadhu, a holy man. The police magistrate then immediately informed Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and in this way Srila Saraswati Thakur's life was saved. In 1930 and 31, a new kind of spiritual education was exhibited for the benefit of the public and especially the illiterate masses. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada demonstrated the import and teachings of the Vedic literature by means of huge exhibitions in which pictorial representations by means of dioramas and dolls in lifelike manner were employed. These wonderful exhibitions attracted thousands of people. One was on the property of the Calcutta Gaudiya Math in 1930 and 31 on the Calcutta Corporation grounds. The exhibition would draw at least 100,000 visitors daily. Wow. During a month time period. This was a cutting edge type of thing at that time. It may sound a little funny to us, making these dolls, but at that time it was a very cutting edge kind of way to reach the people, and Bhaktisiddhanta knew that. He was always looking for cutting edge ways how to reach the people, and it worked. 100,000 people a day for a month. That's pretty big. So in 1933, eager to spread Lord Chaitanya's message beyond the borders of India, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur sent some of his sannyas disciples to England to preach and open up Gaudiya Maths in the West. But not being able to convince the Westerners to take up spiritual life, they returned to India unsuccessful. Fortunately, for the benefit of all the people of the world, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's beloved disciple, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, carried out his Guru Maharaj's order and has spread Lord Chaitanya's Nam Sankirtan movement to every corner of the globe, and is now being assisted by thousands of disciples in his preaching work. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada was so glad to reveal the transcendental glories of Lord Krishna that whenever he found an eager listener, he would go on speaking, not knowing the bounds of time and space, disregarding the requests of his medical advisors up to the last moment, He continued to deliver the message of the Supreme Lord to all people. This was the only purpose of his divine appearance in this world. He did not appear here by being forced by the laws of nature as an ordinary living being appears. He worked until the last moment of his life without any reservation, disregarding physical pleasure, comfort, or relief to himself. His whole life was absorbed in a mood of loving devotion to the Lord. He was fully devoted to the propagation of the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The noble example of his life and conduct, his powerful speeches, and numerous publications are evidence to this fact. In 1936, he was residing in Jagannath Puri, and on December 31, New Year's Eve day, 1936, at the age of 62, he left this mortal world and again re-entered the loving pastimes of Sri Sri Radha and Krishna and the sweetness of Brajadam, the spiritual atmosphere. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai! Wow, amazing description, huh? Nice these days we get to hear these topics. So I'll speak also just a little. I want to read, it's very nicely put together. I want to read that, but I'll speak some other things about Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. One thing that comes to mind is that before he left this world, he gave 4 principal instructions to his disciples about the mission, important activities to be carried out in the mission. So the first of those 4 instructions was, anybody can say? To develop the Navadip Mandal Parikram. He said, develop this Navadip Mandal Parikram, and he said this will bring pure devotion very quickly. That was the first of the 4 of his last instructions. So it gives it some importance to that activity. Anyone here has been on the Navadip Mandal Parikram? A few. Okay, not so many. So this is, I'll just describe it very briefly and then we'll continue. But it's, originally it was a 9-day walking tour started by Lord Nityananda leading Jiva Goswami to the different 9 islands, 1 day for each island. And now so every year they do a replica of this original tour. They do it in 7 days. This is around the time of the Gorpanim festival in Mayapur. So they must get like 10,000 people going. There's too many people to go in one group, so they split it up into like 6 different groups. 2 groups are for Bengali, 2 groups for Russian, 1 group for Hindi, 1 group for English. And then at the end, then they come back and they have a big reception and they all speak and congratulating everyone for doing the whole thing. And then my Guru Maharaj, Jayapataka Swami, then he also speaks and he was telling everyone, so Prabhupada, when anyone would win the marathon, the book marathon for Krishnas, he would say, thank you very much. So now, next year, he said, you double it. Prabhupada, he wouldn't miss a beat. So my Guru Maharaj quoted that. He said, so now we've had 10,000, anyway, the last time I went, it was 10,000. He said, we've had 10,000 this year. So now everyone who's here, you come again. Next year, you bring 1 friend, we will double it. And then you can see like his managers, his disciples, his Bengali disciples there who live in Mayapur, they're managing the whole thing, which is, prasadam for everyone. It's like a big, and it's like, it's not austere. I haven't been on Brajmandal Parikram. I'm sure that must be more austere, I would imagine. But this is not austere. They bring you out a feast. And they bring it out, they cook it and they bring it out in these big trucks twice a day. And you sit down, it's not austere. Actually, it's a big picnic. Everybody should go. Everybody should go. It's a big Hare Krishna picnic. Everyone is there. And then they go and it's a big Harinam. It's a big Harinam Sankirtan. The whole thing, they start out, you get up, you're at your camp. You can go back and forth on the bus, but many people, they camp out. So they don't come back for 7 days. Each night is a different camping place. So you get up in the morning, and then the first thing they have to eat is the Gornitai travel. So they have Mangalarti, and then they have Tulsi Puja. And then right after Tulsi Puja, that's it, boom, they start walking. And with one rickshaw has the speakers, and then the Prabhu's Kirtan, and then the Mataji. So then the 2 Kirtan part, and it's a long line strung out. So they start with the Kirtan, walking with Gornitai in the front, and Prabhupada, then the Kirtan, and then devotees walking. And some are chanting in the Kirtan, some are chanting, it's early, some are chanting their japa. And it's going, and then when they get to a place where there's a pastime place of Mahaprabhu, then sitting down, everyone's sitting down, and then they have the microphone, and different sannyasis or senior devotees, they'll pass the mic around and they'll speak on the pastimes. And then when that's over, they get up again, kirtan again, going to the next place until they get to the breakfast spot, have breakfast. And it's like going like this until like early afternoon when they reach the lunch spot, which is the next campsite. So it's basically, it's just like it's a big Harinam Kirtan stopping with hearing the katha for 7 days. And then, even materially speaking, you're away from all the cars and all that. You're out in the middle of, from the material point of view, you're out in the middle of nowhere. From the spiritual point of view, you're where it's all happening in the Dham. But I mean, you're in like, you're 4 hours from Calcutta, you're in the middle of just these villages and walking through. It's very idyllic. It's very nice. And the villagers, when you're walking by, they're looking, just, of course now they're not so shocked because they kind of know it's coming. But I mean, it's just like here in the middle, they're living in their huts and little simple dwellings. And then it's, just thousands of people walking by chanting like this. It's a very amazing experience. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he said like this for his first instruction to his followers, just before leaving, that develop the Sri Navadip Mandal Parikram. This will bring pure devotion very quickly. And there used to be a t-shirt devotees would, because he also made a statement, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that by this one activity alone of Sri Navadip Mandal Parikram, the entire is so spiritually powerful that the entire universe can be liberated by this one activity. So it's sort of like, you could say in a sense that our whole ISKCON movement is an expansion of this Navadip Mandal Parikram. You could say this is like the original activity, root activity, very important. So then the second of these 4 principal instructions of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur to his disciples. Second was, anyone can say? Develop Mayapur Dham very grandly, very opulently, like this. And we can see that's happening, the desire of Mahaprabhu. And then the third instruction, anyone? Third instruction was a printing press. So keep the printing press going, printing books, distributing them, and people get the printed message, the teachings, philosophy. And then the fourth was the Namhata, congregational preaching. That whatever is going on in the temple should go on also on a smaller scale in people's homes, like this. That the idea of the Namhata is to create an army of preachers. That those who are married and living at home with family responsibilities, that they can have a program in their home once a week, and they can invite people over. Even this has been developed right into the modern program, this Bhakti Vriksha, which is a very, very nice program. It's a copy, actually, of a Christian program called Cell Church, which was developed by Ralph Neighbor. And it was simultaneously developed by other Christian preachers at the same time in different parts of the world, each one unknowing to the other, like the Super Soul inspired. But the basic idea of the Bhakti Vriksha is that a family will have a program in their home, and they'll specifically try to invite new people, their friends or people from work or whoever they might know, or be able to invite them, and have a program once a week with kirtan and some discussion of the philosophy and a little prasad. And then the people who are members, they're supposed to come regularly every week, and then everyone in the group is supposed to be a preacher. They're supposed to, as part of their homework assignment for the group during the week, try to bring new people to the next meeting. And especially bring people who would like to come and stick with it. And so if it starts out with, say, 3 or 4 or 5 people, and then it grows up to, say, 15, when it reaches the point of 15, then it's supposed to split into 2 groups. And so then the leader takes one group, and then by that time, one of the other persons in the group should take the second group. And then those groups are supposed, you have then 1 7 and 1 8. And then those groups are supposed to grow till they reach 15 like this. And the one Christian preacher in Korea who was doing this for Christianity, he started out with one group, few people, and it grew and it split, and then he ended up with like 17 or 18,000 groups, like 800,000 members. He quit his day job, they tithed, they paid his salary, he just traveled to visit all the groups. So it works, it actually works. So this is called the Bhakti Vriksha. So this is part of the Namhata, the congregational preaching, which was the 4th instruction, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So it's something could be implemented, possibly. There's a whole manual that tells how to do it. Very nicely explained. And there's videos and there's a whole magazine they put out. Anyway, different material. It's very nice. So anyway, we're reaching 5:30. But I'll stop here and almost time, but I'll just ask if there's any. Thank you very much for your time and attention. And I'll just ask if there's any question or comment or sharing about Srila Bhakti, anything about Bhakti Siddhanta, anything. Sean? Oh, yeah, you Prabhu.
I think the Bhakti Vriksha and Namhata is almost same, right?
No. Namhata is the general category, means they're same. I mean, in a sense. But Namhata, in other words, the idea of married families having programs in their home, and so but Namhata is the general category, and Bhakti Vriksha is a subset. It's a very specific, like very strategic, preaching oriented. Like say if someone once a year has a program in their home, and invites everyone over, and and that could fall under the category of Namhata, But then if someone's doing this very according to the manual of like every week and bringing new people, and splitting it, that would be better.
This is amazing. I used to be in Mayapur. Vriksha started way later. But Bhakti, the Namhata is for a long time in villages, in different villages in Mayapur. And one thing is very wonderful. Thank you so much for bringing. Guru Maharaj has done all four things.
Yes, actually.
All four things given by Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Guru Maharaj did this thing. Nadi Mandal Parikrama he did. Printing every year on his birthday, and he tried to reach all the disciples that he distribute books.
Yeah.
So this is printing he did. Plus Namhata. Namhata is very famous.
Yeah.
So Guru Maharaj did all four things.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't think about that, but that's actually.
And one thing nowadays, like before, in Nadi Mandal Parikrama or Braja Mandal Parikrama, people they were not coming back, they were staying. But nowadays, for last few years, there is a system.
Yeah.
Like elderly people or rich people who want to participate in a parikrama, same time they don't want to stay because it's a little austere. They can come back.
Yeah, many people do that.
Yeah, so they arrange a special bus or cars for them.
Yeah.
So still they can participate on the evening time, they can come back, and again early morning they can go.
Right. Yeah, many people are doing that. I've done that many times also. They have many buses, and at the end they bring after the lunch, then they come back to the Mayapur temple next morning after Mangalarti. Again out, going out. A good system. Yeah.
It's like exciting. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So yeah, I encourage everyone to please try to go on the Navadi Mandal Parikrama if you can, at least once in your life. So someone, Sean, something? Sita? No? Dronacharya? Anything? No?
Speaking of preparing for the time of death, and I read this book called The Name, 108 Glorifications about the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. It said, Ante Narayana Smriti. The real perfection of life is remembering the holy name of Krishna at the time of death. So that's why we try to chant 16 rounds a day, minimum, because by practicing chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, you can remember Krishna at death and go back home, back to Godhead, to Krishna Loka. I read that it's Ante Narayana Smriti. The real perfection of life is to remember Krishna at the time of death.
Jai, thank you. Yes, that is true. That's why we're doing all of these things. A very nice reminder. Thank you. And that's also why we're chanting our 16 rounds, preparing for that time, doing our homework, so to make a samskar, impression in the mind. Try to. I'm sorry, I interrupted you because he was raising me. Okay. Shankumar?
Thank you.
So thank you very much for your kind attention. And all glories to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. All glories to Sri Navadi Mandal Parikrama. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Patitapawan and Prabhu. That was very nice. We got some Bhagavad Gita, as well as some Leela, our history from about Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So very informative. Thank you very much. We picked up from where we left off earlier in the day, and this whole day is really about remembering and praying for the mercy, and trying to continue with the day of gratitude to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. There's so much that can be said. We could go. There's books that have been written, many of them. So I encourage everybody to learn about our Vaishnavacharyas. Help establish a great foundation and meaning, in the service that we do, and also give a lot of gratitude to understand all the work, all the service, all the austerity, all the sacrifices these great devotees put in, simply so that we can be practicing Bhakti Yoga, Krishna consciousness here today. So thank you for reminding us of that tonight in your class. Hare Krishna. So again, if you just came in, there is a picture of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur up here next to Srila Prabhupada. And so when you offer your obeisances to Srila Prabhupada, also please offer to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and offer respectful obeisances to him. You'll also see up on the altar on the Parampara pictures, there's the Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has a garland on today. Some quick announcements that we have tonight before we stop for prasadam. We have tonight. We have a Sunday feast sponsor, but the sponsor wishes to remain anonymous. But we also want to express our thanks to that person. So let's offer them our thanks and our blessings by raising our hands and chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And we would like to thank the Sunday Feast cooking team, headed up by, it was the Radha Shart Bihari group. I believe it was headed up by Mother Shobha Radhe. So when you see that group, please say thank you for coming today and cooking the Sunday Feast. We would also like to thank Mother Mukta. She came today for the, so we're having some, as part of complying with ISKCON, there's different rules that we have to follow as part of ISKCON. One of them is child protection. Every temple in ISKCON has to follow certain guidelines as well as training. This is for the protection of the children, protection of the youth, making sure that they grow up in a healthy and safe environment. And so she came today to speak with our Sunday school children, so we'd like to thank her. Is she here with us? Or she may still be upstairs. She's still upstairs. Okay, so we'll give her a gift before she leaves. In addition to that, anybody at 7:15 here after the Artik, there'll be a short presentation, about 20 minutes or so, for those who can stay, about the rules and guidelines that have been set forth by our ISKCON, our society, as far as what is going on with regards to child protection and how it relates to our temple. Things that parents should probably know, as well as really anybody who is in a managerial leadership position, but it is open to everybody. So please, if you like, stick around. That'll be at 7:15 once the deity doors shut tonight. Coming up this week, we have our weekly programs on Tuesday night. Stories from Srimad Bhagavatam starts at 7 o'clock. Wednesday night, we have 6:30 to 8 o'clock. We have Kirtan night. And then on Thursday, we have Srila Prabhupada Leela night, where we read about the pastimes of His Divine Grace. All these programs will finish with prasadam at 8 o'clock. Next Sunday is ISKCON. There's a little, if you see, some places will say Saturday. We, on the calendar for Philadelphia, it's recommended that we observe it on Sunday. So next Sunday is ISKCON. I would like to thank, before I forget, His Grace Ganga-Mantri Prabhu. I don't know if he's here. He gave a donation today toward the feast. We had a really wonderful feast today at noontime. It was a half-day fast for Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and he gave a very generous donation towards that feast. So I'd like to thank him. I think is he here? I don't see him. Ganga-Mantri Prabhu? No. Okay. We have the children. Are they here for the? They didn't come down yet for the prasadam prayers? Nope. Okay. So the children will lead us in the prasadam prayers in just a minute. Once they arrive, we'll be serving prasadam in the temple room. Now, the old temple room. I mentioned this last week. We don't want to have anybody eating prasadam in the lobby. About a month and a half ago, we allowed it for 1 week, but once you start something, a lot of times, it continues. We want to keep our lobby clean. We have a large room where the old temple room was, as well as the second floor. You can have prasadam there, but please don't bring your prasadam and eat it in the lobby. Shampoo, is the Gita Jayanti going on?
It's still on.
It's still on. We have a table?
We'll have a table.
Okay. Also, if we're continuing on, this December is the book marathon month. This is something that's been established at ISKCON for a while. This is also the month of when the Bhagavad Gita was spoken. So, if anybody would be interested in sponsoring a case of the Bhagavad Gitas, or individual Bhagavad Gitas, we'll have a display out here outside the temple room. Already we've had, it's very good to hear, our congregation we've sponsored quite a bit of books. I think there'll be a report at the end of the month on just how many, but I'm really happy to hear just how many cases of books that we've sponsored. These books will go out and they will be distributed to the public. They'll also be given to libraries, to hospitals, and to hotels and motels, so that the Bhagavad Gita, the word of the Bhagavad Gita, will be available to so many people. Okay. I'm not sure if they're coming or not. Our children, they lead us in the prasadam prayers. Somebody see if they're outside. If so, send them in. They may be in the train. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll do it ourselves today. This without the children. We have them up here. Master Chaitanya Prabhu, will lead us in the prasadam prayers. Okay. No, you need to.
महाप्रसादे गोविंदे ब्राह्मणी वैष्णवे पुण्यवतं राजन् विश्वासनैव जायते शरीर विद्या जड़ेन्द्रियाता है का जीवे फिले विषय सागरे तार मध्य जीवाती लोभोमय सुदुर्मति ताके जिते कठिन संसारे कृष्ण बड़ा दयाम हरिवारे जीवा जाय स्वाप्रसादन दिलो भाई सही अन्नामृत पाओ श्री राधा कृष्ण गुण गाओ प्रेमी डाको चैतन्य निताय जय निमाई जय निताई जय जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य
प्रभु नित्यानंद
प्रभु नित्यानंद
श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद
श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद
हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे
कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे
हरे राम राम हरे हरे श्री गौरदाई जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा महारानी श्री राधा शरद बिहारी महाप्रसादम की जय श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय.
So 6:30 there'll be japa here in the temple room, and at 6:45 RT will happen for a half hour. Hare Krishna.